All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Machine Learning for Visualization session. My name is Josh Levine. I'm the chair of this session. We have 6 fantastic talks that are all covering areas where we get to use machine learning to do fantastic data visualization problems. I'm going to dive right in with our first talk. So, John, if you want to get your screen shared and we can get your slides ready to go, and we'll go from there.
Okay. So could you see my slides?
Yep, we can see him just fine. So I'll just give you a quick intro and then you can get
Okay.
started. All right.
Okay.
So our first talk today, everyone, is titled KD-INR, Time-Varying Volumetric Data Compression via Knowledge Distillation-based Implicit Neural Representations. The speaker today is John Han, and the remaining co-authors are Hao Zheng and Bei.
Okay. So thank you for the introduction, and very happy to share our recent work on how could we apply implicit neural representation for sequential data compression. So here is just today's outline. First of all, I will just provide a brief introduction about the implicit neural representation. So implicit neural representation, short for INR, as a transformative approach, has been widely used in many domains such as computer vision and computer graphics as a purpose for data representation. So basically, INR represents data as a set of coordinates and set values, and we train INR to learn the corresponding mapping between the input coordinates and the corresponding values. And compared with the existing convolution neural network, INR has the following benefits. The first one is resolution independence. So no matter how large, how small data is, we can just use a single INR to represent. You don't need to consider like the crop size when you design the convolution neural network. And the second one is that as INR just composed of a lot of multi-layer perception, so the number of parameters is just very small. And the third one is that once the network is trained, we only need to save the network for data representation. We don't require any additional cost for data reduction. So because of this kind of benefit, INR has been widely used in scientific data reduction and representation. So this is just one example. Given a volumetric data, we can use INR to reduce the data in various size. And however, the current solution for INR compression need to collect all data before we conduct the training. And sometimes it is not feasible if we aim to reduce the data sequentially, which means that in a simulation, if the data just generated time by time, and we hope that once one time is just generated, we hope to directly compress it. And a very straightforward way to adapt the current solution to a sequential data compression is that given time frame data, and once the first time step is just generated, we can just use the implicit neural representation to compress it. And then we go to the next one. We repeat this process until we just finish the last one. However, this kind of straightforward solution will have one key problem is that the network will forget the patterns. Just imagine that if the network is just only focus on the last time step, and the network cannot access the previous ones. So in the training, as the training goes, the network can only learn the patterns in the last one and cannot refine and reconstruct the patterns in the previous one because the network has cannot access the previous time step anymore. So to address this problem, we just propose KD-INR, a two-stage pipeline to enable an implicit neural representation to sequentially compress time-frame data. So in the first stage, which we call the spatial compression, that is, given a time-frame data for each time step, we just use a tiny neural network to compress them independently. So here in this example, for each time step, it's just a 3D data. So the input to the neural network is their coordinates x, y, z, and the corresponding output is just the values at these coordinates. And in terms of design, we just design a bottleneck layer in the neural network. So instead of using the traditional residual block, where each layer, we have the same number of neurons at each layer, here we just design a bottleneck layer, a modification of the residual layer to try to reduce the number of neurons in the middle layer, so that we can just reduce the parameters and force the network to learn compact representations, since the number of neurons are just reduced. And based on this kind of design, we can just force the neural network to learn the representation more compactly, and we don't need to lose any performance. And the third one in spatial compression is that, so compared with the traditional sampling, where we treat every factor as equally important. So in our case, we want to identify the difference, the importance difference among different kind of regions. One example we can see is here. So this is just a rendering image of the ionization, and here we can see that only the top part has the interesting region, while on at the bottom part, there's no interesting region anymore, and the value just looks very dummy, and which means that we can just pay less attention on that region during compression. So based on this kind of intuition, we just propose entropy-based adaptive sampling to help us to identify the important regions. And after that, we ask the neural network to spend more time on that region. So how do we do that? So first of all, give volumetric data, we just partition them into a set of non-overlapping blocks. So in this example, maybe the block size is just 4 by 4 by 4. And for each block, we can just compute the corresponding entropies. This entropy can just tell us how rich the information is in that block. So if it is a high entropy, then which indicate there's a lot of important information in that block. While if the entropy is just close to 0, then which indicates that there's almost no useful information in that. After that, we can just use this kind of entropies as our probabilities to sample the blocks. So which means that a block with high entropy will be sampled with high probability, and a block with low entropy will be sampled with low probabilities. After sampling, then we just feed this kind of blocks to the neural network to train our model. And we iteratively go through all the blocks, and to make sure that the neural network can go through all the blocks, while it will have more chance to sample a block with high entropy, so that the neural network can learn more important information in these blocks. And after that, the second stage is model aggregation, which means that once we collect all the models in the first stage, we just use one neural network to extract all the knowledge from the previous one and aggregate it into a single one, so that we don't need to use as many as neural network to represent the time frame data. In this stage, after this stage, we can only use a single network to represent the time frame data. So here's the evaluation. So here we just compare 3 deep learning-based solutions and 3 traditional lossy compressors. So in this case, we just show 2 learning-based baselines, coordinate and neural compression. Here we just show the IL6 rendering result. And based on these highlighted regions, the red and the purple boxes, we can see that our approach can just better extract the corresponding geometries compared with these 2 baselines. And here I just done quantitative evaluation, and we just use 3 matrices. The first one is PSNR, which we just computed the value at the data level, LPIPS for the rendering image level, and the chemical distance for the surface level. And here we also show the corresponding average training time for all those 4 approaches. And here we can see that for most of cases, our approach can just achieve the best score among those 4 metrics. And for the neural compression, it just takes the longest time, because instead of only using mean square error to optimize the neural network, neural compression required to compute additional information, namely the gradient for the weight quantization. And here is just a frame-to-frame compression between our method and the 3 learning-based baselines. Here we just constrain the same compression for a fair comparison. And here, based on this kind of frame-to-frame comparison, we can see that for the existing approaches, sometimes the temporal coherence cannot be guaranteed, because you can just see some kind of unsmooth like that. And on the other hand, we also just compare our approach to traditional lossy compressors. Here we just compare SC3 and TTH, RESH, and here we just show the full rendering image. And we just use the same compression ratio for fair comparison. Again, it's very clear that our approach can just achieve a better result compared with the existing tools. And here are just some quantitative evaluations. And again, our approach can achieve the best score for the PSNR, LPIPS, and CDs. However, because compared with the traditional learning-based approach, which is just a single stage, our approach is a 2-stage. So the training time is just doubled compared with the existing solutions. And there's still a large gap between our approach and the traditional lossy compressors. typically in SC3. So there, one drawback of our approach is that we still need significant time to compress the data. And here, just a comparison between our approach and those lossy compressors. Here, we just constrain the same PSR values for fair comparison. And here we can see that compared with the existing approaches, our approach can just produce very clear random images, whereas the others will just contain a lot of noises. And here's the conclusion and future work. So here we propose a knowledge decision-based implicit representation to enable sequentially compressed time frame data. And for future work, one is that we can just design a distributed net framework with efficiency and effectiveness so that we can just significantly reduce the compression time, maybe just in a few hours instead of like days or weeks. And the third one is that the second future work is that we can develop a self-adaptive neural representation so that we don't need to use manual design to just put all one network to all data or tasks. We can automatically design the network architecture depending on the given task and the data. And thank you for listening. I'm ready to take any questions.
All right, John, thank you for that talk. That's awesome. You had some really great results there. I'm going to ask a real quick question, and then we have one question
Okay.
from Slido I want to ask as well, too. So I'm curious, when you did your time slice, you built an INR for each of them. Did you try ever building a small space-time volume for basically a space-time INR that has X, Y, Z, and T as coordinates, but for a small window of time? So maybe a chunk of time, and then another chunk of time, and then another chunk of time compressing together? Or did you just keep every time slice separate?
So in our settings, we just try to separate each one, which means that you have, for example, if you have 100 time steps, then we just design 100 neural network to compress each time step independently. However, we also try that you can just set a small window, like you just separate 100 time steps, maybe into, for example, like 20 windows. Each one will have 5 time steps. And
Yeah.
you can just use one neural network to compress this 5. And we also try this setting, and we find that there's no significance on that. So which means that no matter what kind of setting you set, we can also just achieve similar performance. But just make sure if you just have a large window size, then you need to just design a model with large learning capacity. For example, like the model size should be larger compared with a single time step, because we want to guarantee that once you want to learn the data from multiple time steps, the performance can be guaranteed, especially that we need to extract the knowledge from the first stage.
Great. Yeah, I think you and I are totally on the same wavelength. Like, what's the trade-off here with doing individual versus with both? So this question is a little bit more conceptual. I do want to ask it out loud. Maybe give a quick answer rather than a long one.
Okay.
So the question is from Slido. It's from Chaoli Wang, and it's, what are the barriers to applying INR-based solutions to scientific data compression compared to mainstream non-deep learning-based methods like SZ and ZFP and T-Thrush? Maybe just give your quick thought. We'll get ready for the
Okay,
next
just a quick thought. I think the most barrier about the concern of time, because in learning-based compression, you need to take a lot of time to compress a single data. While for the lossy compressor, it's just very fast. So I think the most barrier is just time.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. And feel free to take that question to Slido, or sorry, to Discord. I think that's a great question to talk about kind of conceptually, because many people are all worried about the same exact concern.
Okay.
John, thank you for the talk. That was fantastic. Let's move on to the next presenter. Haoyu, I believe you're up.
Am I going to directly start or?
Yes, you should share your screen though. We can't see your
screen. Sure. Yeah, can I see that?
Yeah, this should be good to go. All right. How are you? I'll give you a quick intro, just like the last one. So our next talk in this session is improving efficiency of isosurface extraction on implicit neural representations using uncertainty propagation. And the presenter today is Haoyu Li, and his co-author is Han-Wei Shen. Take it away, Haoyu.
Thank you, Josh, for introduction. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining my talk. My name is Haoyu, and today I will be presenting work I did before graduating from the Ohio State University. In the realm of scientific simulations, which are typically run on large clusters, there are common practice of transferring data to local machines for visualization to save on supercomputer resources. This, however, leads to two major problems: the I/O bottleneck and the high cost of local storage. A widely embraced solution involves using neural networks to represent the raw simulation outputs. As an example of this, this is implicit neural representation, also known as the INR. It uses a neural network to learn a function mapping from a 3D position to a scalar value. Because the number of parameters in the network is much less than the number of grid points in the dataset, this method effectively reduces the data size, mitigating the I/O bottleneck and the local storage issues. However, a new set of challenges arise when visualizing data represented by neural networks. Straightforward methods that reconstruct original datasets for visualization are computationally very expensive and increase storage costs. To address these issues, our paper introduced a new technique that allows for querying data directly from the neural networks tailored to specific visualization tasks. This eliminates the need for full data reconstruction and results in significant resource savings. In this paper, we focus on a specific visualization problem of isosurface extraction. Martian cubes is a well-known algorithm for identifying isosurfaces. However, as mentioned in the last slide, dense data reconstruction from neural networks for Martian cubes are very expensive. So in this paper, we proposed a novel approach to quickly identify the output value range from our INR model. We can use this value range to help subdivide the space hierarchically and identify the cells that contain the isosurfaces, so that the total INR inference time is reduced. I will start explaining our approach with the algorithm of hierarchical isosurface extraction and why the value range is important in this algorithm. To identify the cells containing the isosurface, also known as active cells, we can first check if the whole region contains the isosurface. The sufficient necessary condition is that the iso value is larger than the minimum value and smaller than the maximum value in this region. If the iso value is inside this region, we can subdivide that block following the Ko-Chih subdivision pattern in this 2D example. And then for each child, we can perform this value range test again against the chosen iso value and decide if there's an isosurface component inside this child block. And this process can be repeated for all the children recursively until we reach a desired subdivision depth. To allow the hierarchical subdivision, traditional methods pre-calculate the minimum and maximum value and store them in a hierarchical data structure. However, this method requires actual storage, and for INR, it is expensive to do this pre-calculation because we need to perform at least one dense reconstruction. Our method answers the question of how to get the value range from the INR model efficiently without dense reconstructions. Our paper is inspired by a 2022 SIGGRAPH paper where they use affine arithmetic to efficiently approximate the INR output range, giving an input range. We know interval arithmetic is a classic technique used to measure errors in calculation by computing function bounds. The output of interval arithmetic is a bound where the real output value range is guaranteed to be inside this bound. This paper upgrades interval arithmetic to affine arithmetic, which can make this bound tighter to the real output value range of the interval. Affine arithmetic can be done automatically through the neural network by replace scalar values with linearization of the uncertainty units. However, affine arithmetic still has the problem of giving loose bounds on neural networks. You can see in this example, if the bound is too loose, the ISO value V is likely to be outside of the actual range, but inside the estimated bound. In other words, we are subdividing a region without a component of ISO surface. Although this will not generate wrong results, we have to evaluate the INR model many more times, and that makes the whole algorithm less efficient. Since bound by FN arithmetic is still not tight enough, it makes us wonder if we know the value distribution of the output bound, we can have a more plausible and accurate estimation of the output value range. To achieve this, we see that the FN arithmetic is a summation of many uncertain units. According to the central limit theorem, this summation distribution can be approximated by a Gaussian distribution. Once we know the approximated output distribution, we can define a more plausible range using 2 or 3 standard deviations from the mean value. And you can think that this method produces kind of soft bounds instead of the hard bounds by the FN arithmetic. This diagram shows how a probabilistic FN form is applied to the INR. INR is essentially a serial application of linear functions and nonlinear functions. The FN form can be propagated through linear functions without introducing any error, and through activation functions by considering its linear approximation and approximation errors. This approximation and its error are in closed form thanks to the nice property of Gaussian distributions. Detail of this can be found in our paper. Our approach focuses on reducing computation time for isosurface extraction. So here we first show some small-scale datasets as a proof of concept. In this figure, dense denotes the straightforward method where we extract isosurface after dense data reconstruction. And UP denotes our method using probabilistic FN form. Is our method. The number after UP is a hyperparameter sigma that determines the confidence interval of the subbound. The columns from full through append are the baseline methods from the 2022 SIGGRAPH paper. We can see our method is significantly more efficient than other approaches. We also show the hierarchical subdivision results in the paper. UP representing our method can identify active cells closely around the chill isosurfaces. Baseline methods like RA, UA, and RA tend to overestimate the active cells. This proves that our output range estimation is more accurate than the baseline methods. When moving to extremely high resolution data, the benefit of computation time reduction gets larger. For an 8,192 cube data, dense data reconstruction will take more than 1 hour, and our approach is less than 6 minutes. Finally, because our method is probabilistic, it can contain errors, meaning we can miss some component of isosurface in subdivision. However, the percentage of the missed isosurface is very small in all of our experiments. Thank you for your attention. I'm glad to take any question here.
All right, Haoyu, thanks for that great talk. These are really cool results on trying to do marching cubes. I've been looking at and kind of admiring this paper. This is a TBCG paper for folks, and it's been a really interesting result to take a look at. I wanted to ask a question that's related to the Spelunking the Deep paper. So the paper that it kind of inspired this talked about a collection of geometric primitives, not just extracting surfaces. I'm curious, in your experiments, did you try to do any other types of primitives using your uncertainty propagation technique? And if so, what other things do you think would be cool VIS analysis that we could do with the same kind of approach you had?
Yes, I did. So in the original papers, they also use that for, so you have different ways to extract isosurface. You can do marching cubes, and you can do ray marching and decide where the ray hit the surface. So I also did that in the experiment, and I got very similar results as I show in this paper. And also, I think this is also applicable to direct volume rendering. That's also an option. We can use that to decide maybe which part of the volume is transparent we can safely skip. So those kind of things.
Great. We have one other question on Slido, and I'll ask that as well. So does this uncertainty propagation method work on different types of INR architectures, or is it limited to the ones that you used in the paper?
So I think if the propagation part, the affine arithmetic part, you can change the algorithm to change the IR model to allow that. Any IR model should do. I think some IR, if you have some convolution component, you can still do that.
Yeah, and it's worthwhile to point out that that's a relatively important statement because the affine arithmetic method in the Spelunking the Deep paper does not work on all types of INR architectures.
Right.
Depends
I
very
will say
much on the
so.
type of
Yeah.
architecture. Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's true.
All right. Let's get set up for the next speaker. Thanks again, Haoyu. That was an awesome talk.
Thank you, Josh.
All right, Kaiyuan, share your screen and let's get going.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
It's not in presenter mode at the moment. We see just the PowerPoint. That looks great. All right, let's get started if you're ready. So our next talk in this session is going to be StyleRF-VolVis. It's style transfer of neural radiance fields for expressive volume visualization. And the presenter today is Kaiyuan Tang, and his co-author is Chaoli Wang. Take it away.
Okay. Thanks for the introduction. And today I will be presenting our a paper that tackles the style transfer problem in the VolVis scenario, volume visualization scenario. So in this presentation, I will first introduce some background information and the motivation behind our method. And next, I will talk about the details of the StyleRF-VolVis. And finally, I will show some evaluation results to demonstrate the superior generation quality and the flexibility of StyleRF-VolVis compared with existing methods. Okay, so direct volume rendering, or DVR, is a powerful technique that for volume visualization to explore and study the volumetric data. And the expressiveness of and the flexibility of DVR mainly stem from the design space of transfer function, or TF, which maps the point samples of DVR to different visual properties, such as color and opacity, to create a unique visual design. In addition to TF, to further improve the expressiveness and of this scientific visualization, so several works have tried to emerge artistic style in visualization through non-photorealistic rendering, or NPR. So, for example, Lilo attempted to mimic Van Gogh's oil painting to create a more compelling visualization, and Lu and al. Developed an NPR method to generate a visualization with stable drawing styles to display information more effectively. However, so conventional NPR methods rely on predefined generation rules to mimic one certain style and can't achieve arbitrary style NPR. So recently, nerve-based scene stylization has gained a lot of attention and can be employed to achieve arbitrary style transfer for any 3D scene, including volume visualization scene within one unified framework. So neural radiant field, or NeRF, is one neural network that can represent a 3D scene. So NeRF takes multi-view images and corresponding camera poses as input, and after optimization, one NeRF model can render new images of the scene from arbitrary novel views. Additionally, NeRF as a scene representation method can be trained with an advanced stylization module such as VJJ for image stylization to stylize a scene with arbitrary style. However, when employing NeRF-based stylization to DVR scene, we notice that there are two significant shortcomings that limit its application in VolVis scenarios. So first, even though NeRF can represent the DVR scene given a set of multi-view images, so the color, opacity, and lighting information will be baked in network parameters and can't be modified during inference. And this will significantly limit user exploration. And second, in practice, we hope different styles can be transferred to different visual regions of a DVR scene, such as the yellow and the red part of the NeRF rendering in this case. However, the stylized NeRF will usually mix different styles in one visual region, or share different visual region with the same styles, resulting in blurry stylization and a lack of visual coherence toward the original DVR scene. And to address this limitation of using NeRF-based stylization method, we propose StyleRF-VolVis. So our method can support photorealistic style editing, or PSE, namely editing the color, opacity, and lighting of one represented scene. It can also support controllable non-photorealistic style editing, or NPSE, which transfer arbitrary artistic style with visual coherence. The optimization of StyleRF-VolVis has 3 stages. So base nerve model optimization mainly focus on ensure the geometry reconstruction, palette color network or PCN, and unrestricted color network or UCN is optimized to enable PSE and NPSE respectively. So our training starts from the base nerve model. Specifically, we select the hash grid architecture of InCNJP for efficient optimization and inference. Same as other nerve model, so we represent the scene with the density function and the color function. The ultimate density function will be fixed in the later stage to provide accurate geometry representation. However, since we hope to achieve flexible PSE and NPSE, the color function will be discarded in the later stage. And in the next stage, we optimize PCN to enable PSE that allow interactively adjust the color, opacity, and lighting. So in particular, PCN is a color function that represents the scene's appearance with palette colors extracted from multi-view images. And besides PSE, PCN can also classify different visual regions within the radiance field based on the dominant palette color, and is an essential component to ensure visual content consistency of the downstream style editing. Now we show the details of architecture of PCN. The PCN consists of 2 branches. So one branch uses the lighting MLP to predict the view-dependent specular color, and the other branches use a palette MLP to output the view-independent diffuse color. And next, we optimize UCN to enable NPSE. So we first leverage PSE to replace the original palette colors with the average color of each user's selected reference style. And the knowledge distillation is then employed to optimize the UCN and produce a similar diffuse color, but without palette constraints. And finally, we leverage PCN classification results to transfer various styles to different visual regions. So here we show more details about our NPSE process. We first start by segmenting one reference image into 2 different styles, S1 and S2, and manually all through an unsupervised segmentation model, or SAM. Next, by leveraging the PCN classification results, R1 and R2, we can separately stylize these 2 parts with different styles to ensure visual coherence. Okay, so we now show a comparison of StyleRF-VolVis with other baseline methods on NPSE. So for baseline methods, we select state-of-the-art nerve-based method ARF and SNerve, and image-based and video-based stylization method ADA-IN and IRE-VST for comparison. So unlike other baseline methods, only StyleRF-VolVis can support customized style selection. So we highlight our style selection in reference style image. Overall, StyleRF-VolVis produces higher quality results than other methods with clear boundaries and is more consistent with the original DVR scene. In contrast to image or video-based stylization methods, all nerve-based methods exhibit better geometry consistency and can separate foreground object from the background during stylization. However, both nerve and ARF generate poor stylization, where the stylization of S-nerve is blurry and mixed, and the ARF may stylize the scene toward a negligible local style within the reference image that doesn't match the overall impression. So here we show more qualitative comparison results of StyleRF-VolVis with other methods. So we compare short range and long range cross view consistency of different methods with MSE and LPIPS metrics. We can observe that StyleRF-VolVis can achieve the best cross view consistency compared with other methods in general. So except the relatively higher error of MSE metric than IRE-VST for long range consistency. And since the cross view consistency doesn't necessarily reflect the perceived style transfer quality, we conducted a user study to measure the user preference for different nerve-based stylization, and StyleRF-VolVis gains the overall preference. So for StyleRF-VolVis, the PCN classification results are crucial for visual consistent style editing. Here we show the PCN classification result of 2 data sets. We can observe that all visual regions are accurately classified, and with even the fine details remaining consistent with the ground truth. The PCN representation also supports PSE, so allowing user to interactively modify the scene's color, opacity, and the lighting. And moreover, StyleRF-VolVis can be a flexible NPSE framework to support many different forms of NPSE. For example, different styles can be extracted from one reference image to get different stylization. Or different reference images can each contribute a unique style to form one stylization. And the user can also do partial stylization, which only one part of the scene is stylized. So although StyleRF-VolVis achieves state-of-the-art performance in VolVis scene style transfer, it still faces several limitations. So first, it can't represent the non-visible part within the multi-view images. And second, the color refinement within the palette color expression may not separate two similar colors. And third, StyleRF-VolVis can only support interactive PSE but not interactive NPSE. And finally, StyleRF-VolVis only support light intensity adjustment but can't adjust the lighting direction. Okay, to sum up, in this paper, we present StyleRF-VolVis, a nerve-based style transfer framework designed for impressive volume visualization that can achieve high quality, consistent, and flexible 3D style transfer. And in the future, we aim to extend the current StyleRF-VolVis to handle higher dimensional data, such as time-varying or multivariate data. And we would also like to explore a more user-friendly stylization by integrating natural language interaction into the style transfer process. And finally, we would like to thank the following fundings and support this research. Okay, thank you for listening, and I'm ready to take any questions.
All right, Kaiyuan, thanks for that great talk. We already have a couple good questions in Slido, so I'm going to jump right in with those. The first one I think is going to be quick. It's from Ian Biswas, and he's asking, is the code available for us to try somewhere?
Okay, very soon, very soon. Maybe this month, within this month, I think. Yeah.
All right, cool. I think lots of people would be interested in trying this out. The next question is from Siwan Yao, and they ask, would it be accurate to state that achieving NPSE requires 3 distinct stages of network training with the networks trained independently? So I think what they're trying to understand is how does the network training look? Is it all 3 are independent, or do you actually have to train them all at the same time?
It is be trained independently, sequentially. So first you need to train the UCN, and then you optimize to achieve NPSE. Yes.
All right. Thanks again. Just for the sake of time, we're going to cut off the questions here, and let's get ready for the next speaker. Thanks again, Kaiyuan.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, Guan Li, you are up next.
Yeah, okay. Can you see my slides?
Yep, your slides look great. All right, everyone, our next talk is going to be ParamsDrag, interactive parameter space exploration via image space dragging, and the presenter today is Guan Li. Take it away, Guan.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Guan Li, and I'm from the Computer Network Information Center, Chinese Academy of Sciences. Today, I will present our work, ParamsDrag. This is a model that helps the method to explore the parameter space. So, exploring numerical simulation parameter is a critical task for domain expert. Traditional approach to parameter exploration involve iterative adjustment and many simulations. This means that the domain expert need to try many simulation parameters to achieve their goal. And previous study, such as the Institute and the VIS Surrogate, has introduced the deep learning model to mapping the simulation parameter to the visualizations. And this study has improved the efficiency of parameter exploration. However, there's still some challenges, and the domain experts still need to try many input parameters to reach their goal. So this process is very time costing. So, and addressing its challenge, we proposed the ParamsDrag, which is a model has some new features. The first is it can predict outcomes of visualization based on the simulation parameters. The second one is it can support interactive with the generated visualizations. And the third one is it allows to get the parameter from the interactive results. So let's talk about some details of the method. The first one is the generator. Generator has three subnetworks: Params subnet, mapping subnet, and the synthesis subnet. We reference multi-SOTA models such as StyleGAN2 and the in-situ net to guidance our network design. And our generator can learn the mapping from parameter to visualizations and predict the new parameters, predict new visualizations for the parameter. And the second one is the interaction part. In the interaction part, we reference the JINGYI to implement our function. The process involves three main steps. The first one is the user need to select a target structure and a target location. And the next, we move the structure a small step in that direction and update the global images. Finally, we record the structure in new image and get the corresponding parameters. After several steps, we can shift the select structures to the target location and get the corresponding input parameter. And this is a pipeline of the interaction. So although we reference the JINGYI, but if we applying JINGYI directly to our mode, it might have some errors. This is because that our model is discrete distribution of Latin vector in a Latin space. The reason for discrete distribution of Latin vector is that our model uses the explicit label. So what is the explicit label? In computer vision, classical generated tasks mainly focus on the creating images that represent the real world. However, it's hard to use some precise label to those images, so they often use the noise as input. But in the scientific visualization, images of scientific data are linked to the parameter that has specific meaning, such as the physical parameter, and this link means that each visualization comes with an equal and clarity level. The difference is not only affect the model's structure, but also the distribution of their Latin space. So here is a diagram shows the distribution of Latin space for two models. Our model uses the explicit label, which means that each input corresponding to a single Latin vector in the Latin space. But StyleGAN2 introduce noise. This will resulting in multi-Latin vectors for single input. And as a result, the Latin vector in our model are discretely distribute in the Latin space, while the StyleGAN2 tend to be continuous. So if we continue to make simple changes like JINGYI, it can work. It can work for the StyleGAN2, but it's not working for our model. This is because that making the simple modification to the Latin vector can easily make them invalid. So the invalid Latin vector will get the wrong image. So this is the reason. And a simple solution to make this changes among is changes among those valid Latin vector. This means that we only generated the right image. So we can use the gradient descent algorithm for the input parameter, and it will make the Latin vector change in a leapfrog manner and always keep valid points. And this is the solution. So let's look at some results. The first one is the prediction performance. We compared our model against the SOTA model such as the SuperNet and the VDL surrogate. From a visualization result, we can see that those model has achieved very good performance. And we also compared the errors in those visualization. The data shows that our model is just as effective as those models, then we can see some interactive cases. The first one is the right C simulation. In the image at the top row, we move the area of lowest temperature in the middle area to observe the changes in 3 physical parameters and the corresponding visualization images. As the low temperature area moved, the image and the parameter changed. We can stop the process once the low temperature area reaches the target location. At this moment, we compared with the result with the actual image of the parameter. Overall, the target image and the parameter achieved through the interaction matched our goal. And the second case is the cosmological simulation. For here, we interact with the halo structure in the visualization to observe the changes in the parameter. So let's see some video about the case. The first one is the right C. You can see the structure moved to direction and the parameter is changed. And this is another video. Okay, and we can see this is a video for the cosmological simulation, and the right one is the global, and the right one is zoomed in. Okay. In this paper, we proposed ParamsDrag, a surrogate model that enhances parameter space exploration through directly interaction with visualization. And thanks for listening. That's all.
All right, Guan, thank you so much for the fascinating talk here. I think this idea of working with parameters is something that's, I think, everyone is kind of interested in, but also everyone finds very, very difficult to work with and figure out good solutions for. So you're working in a great space.
Yes.
I have a question that's a little bit more of a practicality sort of question. So
Okay.
are there any limitations, or how much did you experiment with a wide variety of parameters in the data? So are you working with models that have a couple parameters? Do you think it works just as well if you have 20 parameters? Are there limitations on one under the other there?
Thanks for your question. So in our study, we employed uniform sampling to explore the physical parameter, but we only use 3 physical parameters. In the first case of the right C, we use 3 parameters. The first one is the viscosity, the second one is the time, and the last one is the depth. And for the cosmological simulation, we also use 3 physical parameters. So I think that the parameter number is a limitation, but this is the interaction. But I think that it's another limitation is our method only supposed to edit the structure mode, but we can't support the other functions. But so I think that in the future work we can do these jobs.
Yeah, and by the way, I think even working with 3 parameters is already pretty cool. So I think I wouldn't necessarily call it a limitation. I think it's just helpful to understand where the method has boundaries. We have one more question from Chaoli Wang. The question is about guidance. So does the user always know where to drag for StyleRF-VolVis data? Is there any guidance provided, especially when the data is in 3D?
So it's a good question. So I think that for some of them domains, they know that they want to make some changes about the visualization, such as in the cosmological simulation. They know the halo's function, halo's location, and they want to move the halo to see if the location is in the new, if the halo is in a new location, what will change about the parameter. So in those cases, we can know how we can do how we can edit the how we can edit the structure, but for other cases maybe they don't know how to change it. Maybe we can to explore more more simulations, more fields.
All right, great. Thanks again for the wonderful talk. Let's switch to our next speaker, who I think is Yuhan. I think, Yuhan, you're still muted.
Oh, sorry. Could you
There
see
we
my
go.
screen?
Awesome. All right. And I think we can see your slides, so let's get started. Okay, so our next talk, everyone, is going to be SurroFlow, a flow-based surrogate model for parameter space exploration and uncertainty quantification. The presenter today is Yuhan Guan, and her co-authors are JINGYI Shen and Han-Wei Shen. Take it away, Yuhan.
Okay, thank you for your nice introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Yuhan Duan, and I'm from the Ohio State University. Today, I'm going to present our paper, SurroFlow, a flow-based surrogate model for parameter space exploration and uncertainty quantification, which is a joint work among JINGYI Shen, me, and our advisor, Professor Shen. And nowadays, in order to fully study the scientific phenomenon and analyze the sensitivity of simulation parameters, scientists often need to conduct a sequence of simulations and compare the results generated from different simulation configurations. However, these scientific simulations can be computationally expensive and time-consuming. So in order to speed up this process, significant research has focused on the simulation and the visualization surrogates, which approximate the expensive simulations, which reduced cost. Existing deep learning-based surrogate models facilitate efficient data generation, but there are still existing several limitations. The first is the lack of the uncertainty quantification. Surrogate models, they are approximations of the actual simulations, so they inherently contain the uncertainties. It is important to convey these uncertainties associated with the surrogate model so that the scientists, they know how much they can trust the model's prediction. And the second challenge is the lack of the efficient exploration across the parameter space that considers the scientist's interests. Nowadays, the parameter space exploration based on heuristic or brute force approaches can be computationally intensive and inefficient. And the third challenge is the reverse prediction. That is the ability to predict the unknown simulation parameters for given simulation output. And this ability is crucial when the scientists, they have the optimal simulation output, but they lack the knowledge about the corresponding simulation parameters. So in our work, we propose an uncertainty-aware invertible surrogate model combined with a genetic algorithm. And our framework contains three components. The first component is SurroFlow, a normalizing flow-based surrogate model with the ability of uncertainty quantification and bidirectional prediction. And once well trained, scientists can use it to predict the simulation output by taking the simulation parameters. And it can also predict the simulation parameters by giving the simulation output. And the second part is to reduce the computational cost of the intensive parameter space exploration for ensemble simulations. And we cast the exploration as a constraint optimization problem and solved using a genetic algorithm. And the genetic algorithm can explore the parameter space globally, which much reduce cost. And lastly, we integrate the SurroFlow and the genetic algorithm as the backend for an interactive visual exploration system, allowing for efficient user-guided parameter space exploration. And the first component, SurroFlow, is a surrogate model based on the normalizing flow. However, the flow model, they require consistent data dimensionality due to maintain the invertibility of the model. Thus, training them on the high-dimensional data can be slow. So to reduce them, we will pre-train an autoencoder with the MNC loss to project the high-dimensional data onto a lower-dimensional latent space. Then our flow model will be trained on the latent representations. And we use flow to model the relationship between the simulation parameter C and the simulation latent representation ZK as a probabilistic distribution. And the key idea of the flow model is to transform any complex distribution into a simple Gaussian distribution. Then the flow will learn the invertible transformation between these two distributions. So in our work, we will learn how to transform the probability of the zk conditional on the C to a Gaussian distribution Z0. And then the parameter of the Gaussian is controlled by the simulation parameter C. And the intermediate neural network layers, it will contain both the latent representation ZK and the parameter C's information. And we will select an intermediate layer in the neural network, and then we will separate it into two parts. And one is the ZC and the another. And we will use the L1 loss to ensuring that the ZC will accurately match the information of the simulation parameter C. So this will allow us from the left to the right direction, we can predict the corresponding parameters from the latent representations. And once we're trained, the model will have the bidirectional prediction ability. So in the forward direction, we have the simulation parameter C. So first, it will predict the Gaussian distribution Z0. Then, gone through the flow model, it will predict the latent representation. And then gone through the pre-trained autoencoder decoder to reconstruct the simulation output X. About the reverse prediction, we already have the simulation output X. So first, it will go through the autoencoder encoder to predict the latent representation ZK. Then go through the flow step to predict the vector ZC. And the ZC will accurately match the simulation parameter C. And our SurroFlow, it can also do uncertainty quantification because it's modeling the complex data distribution. And now the scientists, they can use the SurroFlow to predict the simulation output given the simulation parameters. And sometimes they are interested in some output and they want to know if there are other groups of the simulation parameters can generate a similar or different output. So the second component, we will use the genetic algorithm to generate the candidates for simulation parameters based on the scientist's preference to explore the parameter space. And the genetic algorithm, they can reduce the computational cost of the intensive parameter space exploration. For more details about this genetic algorithm, please refer to our paper. And the third component is an interactive visual expression system. This will allow for efficient user-guided parameter space exploration. And I will introduce it in detail using a case study later. So we evaluate SurroFlow's bidirectional prediction on two scientific datasets, MPath Ocean dataset and the NIX dataset. For the forward prediction, we compare our pre-trained autoencoder and SurroFlow with the baseline VDL surrogate in terms of the PSNI and SSIM. The result shows that our SurroFlow can achieve comparable performance with the baseline, and while the SurroFlow performs slightly better on MPath Ocean dataset. And our model offers additional benefits, including uncertainty qualification and reverse prediction compared to the VDL. And for the reverse prediction, we evaluate in terms of the MAE and cosine similarity. And our SurroFlow achieved high accuracy here. And we also conduct a case study to explore the parameter space for the MPath Ocean. And the scientists, they aim to analyze the Ko-Chih feature. And this phenomenon features a strip of cold water along the equator. And the scientists, they would like to know what configuration will produce this phenomenon. So to start with, the scientists, they will randomly select several groups of the simulation parameters. And after each selection, SurroFlow will run in the backend, and they will provide quick prediction for both simulation output and also the uncertainty. Then the scientists, they will evaluate the volume random image of the SurroFlow's output, and they will assign the higher preference score to the output with lower temperature in the Pacific region. And this is the feature they are more interested in. And the scientists, they want to get a similar simulation output with lower temperature and with less uncertainty. And they also want different simulation parameters from initial select groups of the parameters. So they will assign the higher similarity score about the output and the higher diversity score about the parameters and lower uncertainty score to indicate the expression direction for the genetic algorithm. And then the genetic algorithm, it will discover new parameters that closely match their interest. And given that each generation contains a lot of candidates, visualizing and analyzing results for all of the candidates may have duplicates and inefficient. So our system will employ the K-means clusterings to group them. And lastly, we will visualize the results of the clustering optimized candidates. So in conclusion, first, we propose SurroFlow, a normalizing flow-based surrogate model with the bidirectional prediction and uncertainty quantification. And second, we apply the genetic algorithm for simulation parameter optimization. And third, we design a visual interface for user-guided parameter-based expression. That's it. Thank you for your listening, and I'm ready for the question.
All right, Johan, thanks so much for that great talk. I have a quick question I wanted to ask about the genetic algorithm that you did. I'm curious if you considered alternatives to using a genetic algorithm. I haven't seen genetic algorithms used in a while, so I'm curious what other alternatives you might have considered and kind of why you ended up with the genetic algorithm that you used.
Oh, we also try about the gradient descent to find the parameters, but we found that the genetic algorithm, it can generate a set of the candidates, and it can also search about the parameter space globally. And
right.
yeah, that's it.
Great. We also have a question on Slido from Charles Gwinnett. And the question is about integration. So do you think it would be possible to integrate this workflow with an existing in situ solution like Catalyst? If you don't know what Catalyst is, that's fine. I think the broader question here is, what do you think about integrating this in an in situ setting? So in situ here meaning that the simulation is running live and you're kind of experimenting with it, on an HPC system.
Oh, I don't know about the catalyst and about the time here. It can predict. We use the SurroFlow to predict the simulation output and also predict the simulation parameters, and we can predict that in few seconds.
Okay, cool. Yeah. All right. Since we still have we're a little bit over time, I think we should switch to the next and final speaker for today. Thanks again, Johan.
Thank you.
All right, Tianyu, you're up.
All right. Is my screen share okay?
I think it just came up. Great.
Okay.
All right. So our final talk in this session today is called Regularized Multi-Decoder Ensemble for an Error-Aware Scene Representation Network. And the presenter today is Tianyu Xiong. And his co-authors are Skylar Worcester, Hanshi Guo, Tom Paterka, and Han-Wei Shen. Take it away, Tianyu.
Thank you, Professor Levin, for the introduction. My name is Tianyu Xiong, and I'm a fourth-year PhD student at The Ohio State University, advised by Professor Han-Wei Shen. This is a joint work in collaboration with Argonne National Lab on a novel uncertainty-aware SRN, or implicit neural representation. Scene representation networks, or equivalently implicit neural representations that we heard many times in the session, are neural networks trained to predict values given coordinates for field data, and some desirable properties include the compressiveness and its continuous form. Moreover, large-scale data can be queried and visualized with a small memory footprint, which is equivalent to the number of parameters in an SRN, as the video shows. And this is especially helpful for dataset larger than the GPU or CPU memory, making it possible analyzing and visualizing data on your local machine without distributed or out-of-core strategies. However, an issue arises after the completion of SRN training when the ground truth data are discarded. During inference, we only have the access to the reconstructed data and the visualizations without knowing their quality or errors, and this can be problematic when visualizing regions containing scientific features. To enable SRNs to quantify prediction quality even in inference time, we propose to leverage uncertain neural networks for SRN. In contrast to conventional networks, uncertain neural networks can produce multiple possible predictions, and we can compute the variance of these predictions as the uncertainty of the model. Due to the epistemic nature of the uncertainty, this variance can potentially correlate with error for prediction quality assessment. And the variance is also accessible with the network itself at any time. And many of the methods can be easily applied to SRN tasks as in VIS, such as several performance, Bayesian, and ensemble methods. But in our experiments, we do identify several problems with the existing approaches. Firstly, they can result in a reduced accuracy. What this figure shows is that the yellow line representing a standard SRN, a non-uncertain SRN, has a higher accuracy than any other uncertain version of this particular network across different compression levels. On the other hand, the variance acquired with the uncertain SRNs can sometimes deviate from the spatial pattern of error, and an overconfident problem where low variance in some domains can correspond to high error can be especially misleading in this uncertainty-informed visualization. To address these issues in the existing uncertainty quantification methods, we make two endeavors. We first propose a novel uncertainty-aware architecture for future grid SRN for the improved accuracy. And then we guide the spatial distribution of variance towards error through a novel variance regularization loss for ensemble learning. Finally, we comprehensively evaluate the performance of uncertainty quantification algorithms applied to scientific data SRNs and share the results. We first review feature grid SRNs, which have a grid encoder that has learnable embeddings on its vertices. A coordinate query will be encoded through trilinear interpolation of the neighbor vertex features. And then this will get decoded by a lightweight MLP. Different architectures can have different grid and MLP components. But our multi-decoder architecture is a flexible framework that can be easily adapted to different feature grid SRNs. And MD-SRN simply requires training an ensemble of decoders along with a shared feature grid to acquire uncertain predictions. And all predictions are supervised with the ground truth data using mean-squared error. Contrasting our ensemble scheme with the traditional deep ensemble method, which trains independent networks to form an ensemble, this single shared grid encoder in MD-SRN can use much more parameters than any individual grid from a deep ensemble member. Hence, our member networks can have higher expressiveness and accuracy. We now shift our attention to variance error similarity after handling the accuracy issue. We propose to augment MD-SRN with an additional variance regularization to improve the reliability of variance such that it aligns with the actual error. We propose to minimize their dissimilarity after mapping them to valid probability densities. To do this, we can scale a value at a position, for example, a variance at a position, by its total aggregate in a volume. Although variance and error can have very different scales, after this normalization, they are now comparable. And another nice property for this normalization scheme is that the probability density has a natural representation of proportionality or relative magnitude, as it is a ratio of a value's contribution to the total over the spatial domain. By matching these proportionalities of variance across the spatial domain to error, we can achieve this goal of letting regions with a quote-unquote high error also have a high variance. To minimize the dissimilarity, we use KL divergence between these two normalized distributions, and results show that the regularization can effectively increase the reliability of variance for MD-SRN. We dubbed the final model regularized multi-decoder SRN or MD-SRN, which is the multi-decoder network trained with the weighted regularization. We additionally design a scheduler for the regularization strength such that we don't need any tuning to achieve satisfactory performance. We now present the results of our evaluation of uncertain SRNs on both the data reconstruction accuracy and the variance quality, which is defined by the similarity to error. The evaluated uncertain SRNs are state-of-the-art models trained with uncertainty quantification algorithms, and that include the following methods. Please find a brief introduction of these approaches in our paper. We present quantitative results for two datasets here, but we again direct the comprehensive comparison to our paper and our supplemental material. For data compression, for data reconstruction, we evaluate using the PSNR, and we see that our models, MDSRN and RMDSRN, surpasses other models significantly, which also has a similar performance to a standard SRN in the first row of each dataset. This reveals the advantage of our model in providing uncertainty quantification while maintaining competitive accuracy for specific parameter budget. However, we do observe the limitation of this extended training time for our ensemble-based method. To qualitatively evaluate the accuracy of the visualization results, we present volume renderings of the next dataset. We also add image-level metrics, including image-level PSNR, SSIM, and the perceptual loss. And we can see that our model RMDSRN, which is on the left-hand side of the ground truth with the blue border, had the best quantitative results. And we can also qualitatively confirm it from the zoom-in views that RMDSRN has the best preservation of the ground truth features. We apply 3 metrics to evaluate the variance-error similarity, but for the sake of simplicity and time, we focus on interpreting Pearson correlation between the variance and error. We can see that predicting variance or the PV models have the highest variance-error correlation, and MDSRN actually performs poorly out of the box. But thanks to the variance regularization, the regularized RMDSRN achieves second-best result, which is also a lot better than the remaining methods. And we qualitatively evaluate the usefulness of variance for visualization. In Plume dataset, we compare the rendering of the error fields on top and the variance on the bottom for each model in different columns. We see that the PV model in the second last column the variance tends to be over smooth across space, such that it can fail to capture the detailed error patterns. But RMDSRN actually has the best localization of error hotspots. We also conduct cross-compression level evaluations on this particular 4 GB isotropic dataset, and this observation is consistent with previous findings where our method, MD and RMDSRN, has the best accuracy, similar to a standard SRN for all levels. And PV leads the variance error correlation results with RMDSRN follows. This concludes our evaluation section. However, our paper presents more findings, including a case study showcasing the power of uncertainty-aware visualization algorithms for uncertain SRNs, as well as additional ablation studies. And we encourage interested audience to check our paper out. To summarize our work, we propose a narrow-error SRN using a parameter-efficient multi-decoder architecture, as well as a novel variance regularization loss to improve the reliability of variance as a representation of model error. We also present comprehensive evaluation on the effectiveness of popular uncertainty quantification methods for scientific data SRNs for the interest of practitioners and researchers. Lastly, we would like to thank the following foundings for supporting our research. Thank you for your attention. And I can take any questions now.
All right, Tianyu, thanks so much for the talk. These are really, really cool results to incorporate uncertainty into all these other representations we're using. I have a question about what to do with the output. So the output meaning here, you've run your RMDSRN, and now you have both a volume and you have some notion of variance and uncertainty. You're showing us pictures of the volume rendered uncertainty, right?
Yes.
Do you think we should be doing anything different with the volume renderer to begin with? So what if we want to somehow directly incorporate the uncertainty measures that you've captured plus the volume data? How would you think of a volume renderer in that setting?
Yes, that's a great question. Actually, I think it's it should be a very great research question. That how you incorporate variance into or uncertainty into your rendering result. Actually, one of the study we did is to directly incorporate these different uncertain predictions in your volume rendering pipeline, inspired by previous work on a statistical derived volume rendering framework. So basically, there is a potential for SRNs to get applied on this advanced uncertainty-aware algorithms that have been presented in the community. And this should be also a new frontier of research, thinking about how do you incorporate that in your visualization, such as in an integrated visualization system or novel volume visualization algorithms.
Yeah, I think there are many people, especially there was a workshop earlier in the week on uncertainty visualization, who are going to be very interested in also thinking about similar questions there. We have one question that just popped up from Slido. And the question is It is usually seen that ensemble models are more accurate than a single model-based method. You show a single SRN works better than an ensemble. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I think I need to clarify the settings here. So every comparison for a single data set and a model is for the same number of parameters. So for example, if you're gonna make an ensemble of SRNs while maintaining the same parameter size, you actually will need to reduce the number of parameters in each ensemble members. So you have like an n number of parameters for an SRN, then you will have like for five member ensemble, you will have 1/5 of the parameter for each member. So in this case, we see that the performance is reduced, but we really care about the performance per parameter budget. So that we have this parameter efficient network proposed for SurroVis SRNs.
Yeah, and I think focusing on this kind of parameter level efficiency is a neat metric to kind of think about with respect to all of this. We're pretty much at time for the session. There was one more question on Slido about generating the SRN ensembles. Tianyu, I'm going to ask if you're on Discord, maybe you can take that up with Shomo Dada and speak from there. My guess is you might know who that is. So thanks again, Tianyu. And just one more time, I want to give a round of applause to all of the great presentations we got to hear in this session. This is a really cool area. As many people know, it's an area that kind of has a sweet spot in my heart. So I'm really excited to see. If you look outside now, it's finally morning here in Tucson. So hope everyone has a great day and see you later at the conference. Bye, everyone.